Hey guys, how's it going? Today's video is going to be my March wrap-up. I ended up reading 12 books this month, which is wild to me. Now, to be fair, a lot of them were a little bit on the shorter side, but still, 12 books is a heck of a lot. So let's just get out of the intro and get into the books that I read. The first book that I read this month was Reconstructing Amelia by Kimberly McCreight. I ended up giving this a 7 out of 10. This is the story of a single mother who is also a lawyer and hella busy. She has a 15-year-old daughter, and they have a very good relationship, but she's never home. It always takes her forever to get home. When she is home, her and her daughter are really close. One day she gets a call from her daughter's school saying that she's been suspended because she was caught cheating on a test, which is super unlike her. She's a very high-achieving, really cares about her grades, good kid. And then when she gets to the school, she finds out that that was the case, but in the time it took her to get from her work to the school, her daughter jumped off the roof and has killed herself. Obviously, trigger warning for mentions of suicide. I did like the premise. I thought it was interesting, and I really like sad emotional stories that can't have a happy ending, if that makes sense. They can have a satisfying ending, but you can't get a happy ending. No matter what happens, her daughter is still dead. Her only child is still gone, and nothing's going to change that. So I really like going into stories like that, but the writing of this, it just didn't work for me. This book was written in 2013, but it is written like an older adult trying to write how teenagers sound, and it is so cringy at times. The adult scenes are really well written, I think, but the teenage scenes, they don't make any sense. The narration is all off, and between every chapter is emails and text messages and stuff. And the fake chat speak is so annoying. Also, they don't use any punctuation except semicolons. Kids don't use semicolons. Nobody uses semicolons. A couple other things I want to mention about this book is representation and how it's addressed, I suppose. So the main character, she finds out that she's a lesbian, she's only attracted to women, and she immediately goes from not knowing her sexuality and just being really uncomfortable with sex, sexuality, and everything that goes along with that, to immediately having sex with this girl every day. And it's very abrupt in the story too. It just goes from they kiss at school one day or something, and then a couple days later she's sneaking over to her house in the middle of the day, skipping school to have sex. And speaking from experience, 15-year-old girls that don't even realize they're attracted to girls until last week don't immediately jump into sex with a girl. Most of them don't even know how to have sex with another girl. Just saying. So while I did appreciate the attempt at the representation in this, it just wasn't believable at all. There is also mention of somebody who seems to be somewhere on the autism spectrum. It's never explicitly said, but it's very strongly hinted at in the way that they explain how she is. They don't use the words, but that's what it seems to be. From what I know, it doesn't seem very well done. It seems to be a very poorly researched view of what autism is. I don't have the personal experience or research to back that up, but it just doesn't really seem that great. Hello, I'm editing the video and I just realized I forgot to mention something that I think is really important about the autism representation in this. So the way that the autism itself is handled is very negatively. They act like it's something that's wrong with the character. It's hidden. The family is embarrassed by it and lies about it. Obviously that can be a very harmful view and that can be triggering for some people, so I just wanted to jump in here and mention it. So sorry that I forgot, but now back to the regular video. Overall though, the plot was really enjoyable and definitely what I was looking for, but the characters and the writing just didn't quite do it for me. If you're a plot-driven person though, I would recommend this book. But other than that, I'd skip it. The next 3 books I read, I'm going to talk about all at once, even though I read them at different times throughout the month. But that is books 4, 5, and 6 of the Chronicles of Narnia series. I gave Prince Caspian a 7.5 out of 10. I gave Voyage of the Dawn Treader also 7.5 out of 10. And I gave The Silver Chair, I ended up going with 9 out of 10. It's an 8.75, but I always round up, so I'm saying a 9 out of 10. These books are obviously children's classics, and I haven't read them before, so I didn't actually finish the series. That was one of my goals for the month, but I just couldn't finish the last one. I ran out of time, but that's okay. I will get to it. I'll try to get to it next month with the owls going on. I'm not sure if I will, But I really liked these. I found them just fun, adventure-y Narnia books. My favorite though was definitely, like I said, The Silver Chair. I absolutely loved Puddleglum. I thought he was such a fun character, and I just love that type of nonsense. There was just something about him that I just absolutely adored. I thought he was hilarious with his always talking about how terrible everything could be, and it was just such a fun character to follow that he definitely made this story so much more enjoyable. I would have enjoyed it anyways, but I was worried about the cast of characters that were specifically in this book, so I was not sure if I was gonna love it, but Puddleglum is just the best and he should be in every story. Next, I listened to the audiobook of The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. I ended up giving this an 8 out of 10. It's the story of a girl who, it's just her and her mother, and they're always moving from place to place, kind of on the run. They have this bad luck that follows them wherever they go, and they never stay in a place for too long. The girl's grandmother is a kind of eccentric, really famous, like, cult classic author, and it takes a while for you to find out why, but they don't talk to her and they kind of shut her out. And then she dies and they think that they're free, and then more weird stuff starts happening, and then the girl's mother is missing and stuff happens from there. I really liked the premise. I really liked the beginning. It just seemed like it was setting up for something that was so up my alley, like dark and spooky and that kind of fantasy where you don't know if it's real or if they're imagining it, and it's just that really fun, questioning reality, dark vibe. But the ending was just really disappointing. I didn't like the way that things turned out. I didn't think that the ending was satisfying. It was rushed in a lot of ways. I still gave it a higher rating because I liked the starting of it and the middle of it so much. I think that it definitely helped that I listened to it on audiobook though. I like audiobooks for slightly disappointing reads because I feel like I'm not wasting my time because I'm doing something else at the same time, if that makes sense. Like for this one, I was down in my basement doing a puzzle while I was listening to it. I'm not sure if the sequel is going to kind of redeem the ending. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but basically the ending, it's like this big chunk of time is just missing and is all of a sudden thrown into something that doesn't quite make sense. And apparently the sequel focuses a lot on what happened in that missing chunk of time. So I'm not sure. I might pick it up. I'm definitely not going to pay for it because I'm very iffy about it. But if anybody has read the sequel to it, let me know how it is, especially compared to the first book. Like if it's more like the beginning of the book or more like the ending of the book, because I'm curious but not curious enough to risk it. But overall, I enjoyed most of this book, so I still gave it an 8 out of 10. Next, I listened to another audiobook, and that was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I unfortunately did not like this book. It was just not for me. I ended up giving it a 6.5 out of 10. I just couldn't vibe with it. I think that the writing style just didn't work for me. It seems like most people absolutely adore this book, but if you haven't heard of it, it's essentially the story of a band that was together and then they broke up and they were a really famous band and nobody knows why they broke up, and the book is told in an interview format, and it's basically them telling the story of Daisy Jones and the Six and what happened. And I don't know, a lot of people were saying that it was really emotional and that they really enjoyed it. I didn't connect with any characters at all. And maybe that's just because of the writing format. Like I said, it was written in interview form. It also didn't help that because I was listening to the audiobook, I'm not always good at telling the voices apart. In a regular book, I would be able to go backwards and double check to see whose point of view I was reading, but sometimes I'd forget who we're talking about and there weren't enough other clues for me to figure it out. So I was kind of lost at a couple points. And yeah, honestly, I didn't care about any of the characters, and I was expecting to at least mostly enjoy it because I absolutely loved The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I love Evelyn Hugo so much as a character. All of the characters in that I felt really connected to, but this one just wasn't for me, and it's a bit of a bummer, but a lot of other people enjoyed it, so if you're curious about it, I would still recommend checking it out because I seem to be the minority here, but yeah, 6.5 out of 10. These next couple books I finished as part of my 24-hour readathon. I have a video up there that I'll link above and below if you want to watch that. I read the ebook of Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna McGuire. This is the first book in the Wayward Children series. I gave this an 8.5 out of 10. It's about what happens when children who go into different worlds, so think like Alice in Wonderland when she goes into Wonderland, what happens when they come back. From what I've seen so far, they are all original characters. For some reason I was under the impression that this was going to actually follow some kids from other like classics that I knew of, but we didn't. There are twins named Jack and Jill, but it's not that Jack and Jill. People keep showing up dead and they're trying to figure out who did it and why, and It was just really fun, really, really dark, kind of gory in a very interesting way. It's one of those books that doesn't have too much description because it's so short, but the description that you get is really, really good. Like, everything's very purposeful, I feel. I would have liked a little bit more time to really connect with the characters and spend a little bit more time with them, but again, because of the novella format, that didn't quite happen. But overall, I really did enjoy it, and I will check out the rest of the series, and like I said, 8.5 out of 10. Next, I listened to another audiobook, and that was What If It's Us by Becky Albertelli and Adam Silvera. This one was not my cup of tea. I gave it a 4 out of 10, and I knew it wasn't going to be my cup of tea, but I wanted to give it a chance anyways. This is the story of two boys who have this really cute meetup and then don't end up getting each other's numbers, and then they kind of are trying to find each other, and it's their romance that keeps being a lot of almosts and just them trying to meet up and see if they really are compatible. And yeah, it was cute. You know that I don't like cute romances. I don't like romances in general the vast majority of the time. The reason why I wanted to pick it up though is because I absolutely loved They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera, which is another romance, and Adam Silvera wrote that book and co-wrote this book. So I thought that maybe I would enjoy it, and it turns out I don't. I think that what I loved so much about They Both Die at the End is that sense of doom and how sad it is, and you know that you're going to go in heartbroken, and I really like that vibe of it. This whole cutesy thing, it just really wasn't for me. So it's not a bad book, but it's not my cup of tea at all. So don't let the low rating scare you if you do want to try it. Look into somebody who actually enjoys reading romance. But for me, personally, it was a 4 out of 10. Then I read another ebook, and that was The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. I ended up giving this one a 7 out of 10. I just was expecting more to it. It's a story of a young woman who, when she was a girl, she went to the summer camp and 3 of her cabin mates, her only 3 cabin mates, disappeared and were never found. And now, all these years later, they're reopening the camp, and the camp director, owner, asks her to come back and be a camp counselor, and she goes to try to get some closure, solve the mystery, etc. I don't know, I think that I was expecting a lot more, and it really bothered me. I was trying to look for the lie the whole time, so I was on high alert, watching everything that she said and trying to find where this big lie was, and there wasn't one. Like, I know what they're referring to. I wouldn't call it a lie, I would call it a child making an error, and I'm not going to get any more into it than that, but yeah, I really didn't like that. The ending was disappointing in that way, but then it got interesting. So I enjoyed the beginning of it, I enjoyed the middle, I didn't like right before the end, because I found out some other things that I just found really disappointing, but then the twist at the end and the resolution of the mystery I really liked. So it was like good, okay, meh, good. So overall a 7 out of 10, but because solving the mystery is what I like most about mysteries, that low part right here counts for more of the rating than all the other parts that I liked. But I thought it was interesting. I thought that there was enough twists and turns, enough suspicious characters to make it kind of fun to guess, and yeah, it was overall pretty good. And then I read my favorite book that I read this month, the favorite book that I read all year. I don't know what's going to top this. Still Alice by Lisa Genova. I knew that I was going to like this, but I'm still giving it a 10 out of 10. This is so outside my comfort zone. This is contemporary. This is written in a very factual way. But yeah, I am absolutely over the moon, in love with this, and it was a 10 out of 10. I can't think of anything that would have made this book better. This is the story of a woman named Alice who is a Harvard professor. She is a very successful, a very intelligent woman. Her whole identity revolves around her intelligence. You know, all of her friends are other professors at Harvard. Her husband is also a professor and a very renowned biologist. Like, her whole identity and everything she does revolves around her mind. And then she gets early onset Alzheimer's. And first of all, it's dealing with all of the regular fear that goes along with that, and then also realizing that she lost absolutely everything so quickly. If you want to see me read this and bawl like a baby, check out that reading vlog, because this destroyed me. I don't think I've ever cried so much with a book. Not only was I crying while reading it, but in the clips afterwards when I'm talking about it, I just kept crying again. And I'm trying not to get too much into detail, because every time I think too much about this book, I tear up again. Like, there are so many scenes that are just heartbreaking, and I watched this movie, so I knew a lot of the really big scenes, and I knew what was going to happen. And I mean, it's Alzheimer's, and this is a realistic story, so you know she's not going to get better. There isn't a cure for Alzheimer's. So just going in and knowing all those things, and it not taking away from my enjoyment at all, the fact that even knowing what was around the corner and still sobbing when it happened was just such an emotional and enjoyable in that really heartbreaking way. And this book was just so friggin' incredible. Like, yeah, I don't even know how else to explain it. You just, please read this book. If you enjoy crying at all, read this book right now. These last two books were not part of the 24-hour readathon, but after that I picked up another emotional book and I read The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. I gave this initially a 9 out of 10, but I'm pretty sure it's a 9.5 out of 10. I think just comparing it emotionally to Still Alice, I was thinking 9, but now that I've had a little more distance, I definitely think 9.5. I feel like this is another book that so many people have read and it's been talked about so much, but if you don't know, this is a story of a young black girl who watched her unarmed black friend be shot by the police, and it's basically the story of her trying to decide how much to speak up and her dealing with that grief and dealing with this world, knowing what the world is like. And it's so much more than the plot. It's one of those books that the plot is very important, but there's so much going on. Like, you just see the whole scope of everything and race and racism. And she goes to this really prestigious school that is mostly white kids. I think there's only 4 other black kids, if I remember right. But even just the writing style of the difference between her at her school and her at home with her family. And you see her inner monologue, and every time she walks out by the police, just the mindset that she has to be in of make sure your hands are visible, don't make any sudden moves, don't say this, do say this, speak in this tone. Like, it's something that was so fascinating and eye-opening, because obviously I know what racism is. I know that the world is racist. I know that there's a lot of terrible injustices, and I know that in a lot of parts of the world, a lot of police do discriminate against black people. But as a white person, it's something that I don't have to actively think about. If I walk past a police officer, I don't have to assume that they're going to start asking me questions. I mean, I'm an anxious person, so I would anyways, but you know what I mean? It's not something that I have to actively worry about. And just seeing it through her eyes was just an entirely new perspective. And one thing that I really liked in this book is it basically said that if you're a white person, you're not going to understand all of this, but that's okay. Because I'm not going to understand every single thing. I'm not going to be able to relate to it. I can understand the concepts and I can see it and it can be explained to me and it can make sense, but I can't fully understand it because I don't have those life experiences. I would honestly highly recommend this book because, first of all, as a book, it was really great. The audiobook also specifically was really good. The narrator did such a good job because there were so many parts that her specific dialect was really telling, I guess. Like, when she's hanging out with her friends, like the slang and the specific dialect that she uses, and then when she's talking to like the police officers, how abruptly it changes and how her dialect, her accent even, has to change. And the narrator just did such a good job at that I would highly recommend the audiobook. I think that this book was really informative, it was really powerful, it was really emotional, and as a white person, I can't have these same experiences, but this book was written in such a way that I can understand them better. And I know that I'm never going to understand them 100%. I'm never going to live that life. And I'm just not going to understand this 100%. But I can understand it the best that I can so that I can be the most educated I can be. But I just really enjoyed it. I loved so many of the things that it said. There were so many parts that I had to like pause the audiobook afterwards and just kind of think about for a little bit. And it was just one of those books that really makes you think, and I always love that. So definitely a 9.5 out of 10. I didn't cry as much as I did with Still Alice, but I still cried, and it's definitely one of those books that's going to stay with me, and I definitely want to own the physical copy so that I can reread it eventually. And the last book that I read this month, I just really needed something light after all of that, so I read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I actually only gave this a 7 out of 10, and I was a bit disappointed in that, but I think it's because I just enjoy the adaptations so much more. This is the first time that I've actually, hi Comet, ever read the book. I've watched the movie, I've watched different adaptations, I've watched... Oof. And I think that after all of that, the book just felt a little bit almost lacking to me because, you know, in, for example, the movies, there's so much more going on and the visuals of it are so important to it, and just the way that it portrays the nonsense is really, really well done. So going from that to the book, it was just a different experience, and I think that I just prefer the experience of the movies. So this is one of those rare times that I'm going to prefer the movie to the book, but I think that had I read the book first, or at least earlier, I would have been able to appreciate it more, but because I like the specific visual aspects of the movie, I don't know, this just wasn't quite for me. It also, to be fair, might have been because I wasn't in a great mindset for it. Hi, Comet. Now, to be fair, I might have just not been in the right mindset for it. Like I said, I had just read two very emotionally heavy books, and with the state of the world right now, I think that I just couldn't quite lose myself in Wonderland as much, and I think that I needed something maybe a little more visual so that I could have that extra immersive experience. So I'm going to leave it at a 7 out of 10 for now, but I'm definitely going to reread it eventually. And Comet, why are you rubbing your face on the camera? You want to give them kisses? That's so nice of you. So it is a 7 out of 10 for now, but I'll probably reread it someday, and I reserve the right to change my mind. And there we go. Those were the 12 books that I read in the month of March. March was a very successful reading month. I read some lighthearted, some kids stuff, some heartbreaking, really emotional stuff, some really dark stuff. Like, it was just a very good reading month. I definitely got a lot of enjoyment out of things. If you guys read any of these books and have any comments or thoughts on them, let me know down below, or if it's anything spoilery, you can DM me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @TehBuggy. But just, if you want to talk about books, let's talk about books. That's half the point of BookTube. So if you enjoyed this video, please click the like button to let me know, and subscribe to stay up to date with the rest of my videos. For the month of April, where it's going to be Camp NaNoWriMo and the Hour Readathon, my regular videos every Wednesday and Sunday, one of them is going to be a weekly reading vlog, and the other one is going to be a weekly writing vlog. I haven't decided which one's which yet. We'll see. But either way, the month of April is going to be completely vlogs, unless I mess up at some point or fall off the bandwagon with something, but expect lots of vlogs. If you don't like vlogs, I'll see you in May. But that is all for today, so I hope to see you guys next time, and until then, have a great day. Bye.